I have just got back from a 1-week silent retreat with no phones, and it was one of the most challenging things I have done for a while, and it wasn't because of the silence or the no phones. So when I pulled up, there was way more people than I thought there was going to be. There was 51 people on this retreat. It was on a big open field, and when you was either staying in your vehicle, I was staying in the van, or you could pitch a tent, or they already had pitch tents provided. On the field, there were shower facilities, there was toilet facilities, there was an area where we ate, and there was an area where we did the meditation. It also backed onto the River Thames, so you could have a cold dip if you wished, and there was a sauna. So at first everyone was mingling, having a little chat, and then we sat down for food. We had our dinner. As we was eating, Karen, who was one of the organisers of the retreat, she was going over all the rules. So here were some of the rules. Once the silence starts, that's it. No talking whatsoever. You're not allowed to make eye contact with anyone. You are not allowed to eat after the selected hours where we were eating. So you had breakfast at 7:30 and you had lunch at 11:30. After that, you were not allowed to eat till the next day. There was X amount of food made. If it all got eaten, you would go hungry. You were not allowed alcohol or drugs. You were not allowed to masturbate. You were not allowed to have any sexual intercourse with anyone else in the retreat. And then the silence started. Now, what I didn't know about this retreat, because I just booked it on a whim, was it was a Vipassana retreat. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's the Buddha teachings of Dharma. Now, synchronicities, this is actually something I've been practicing myself for the last 3 to 4 years. The teachings I've applied to my everyday life. It's about being more conscious, being aware, raising your consciousness levels. So when Yogi Dimitri was informing us all what we should kind of be expecting throughout the week, I was thinking, I do this daily. I've been doing it for years. With the distractions of the world, this is going to be easy. I was humbled. So we were meditating for 8 hours a day, which is way more than I usually do. Now, these meditations were either sitting meditations and walking meditations. In between this, we also had talks, and we also had our breaks. In the breaks, we were not allowed to do essentially anything. So you just had to rest or meditate. That was it. You weren't allowed to exercise. You were not allowed to read. You were not allowed to write. These were the things that I was expecting that I was going to be able to do on the retreat. And this is why I got humbled. So day 1 come, we finished the morning meditations. It was time for food. Now, we had karmic services that we needed to do, 2 chores throughout the week. So I chose day 1, morning. I thought I'll get it done now while everyone's eating, and then I'll go later and let everyone eat. Did all my chores, come back, there was no breakfast left. No big deal. I fast all the time. No bother. We're going to be eating again in a couple of hours anyway, so it's not a big deal. We did the rest of our meditations. Dinner come. Other people didn't eat because people were eating too much because they were worried that they weren't going to be full. This was continuing through the first couple of days. And I could feel the energy of people. People were panicking, thinking they're not going to eat. They were hungry. All these thoughts are just going on in your head. And everyone's looking... Day 2, Karen needed to speak and tell people they need to stop eating so much because people aren't getting fed. And that's not fair. During this time as well, we was always outside. We were covered by canopies and tents when we were meditating, etc. But we were still exposed from the sides by the wind and the rain because the first few days, it was windy and rainy. Now, during our walking meditations, so I was very curious to this because I have done walking meditations, but not like this. So if you imagine this is your feet, this is what you have to kind of do. So in your head, this is what you're thinking. So if this is, let's say my left foot rise, left foot lift, left foot step, and left foot land. Right foot rise, lift, step, land. And that is what you were doing continuously for 45 minutes. Just looking in front of you, rise, lift, step, land. Rise, lift, step, land. And the idea behind it is you were constantly being present. You were constantly being aware. If your mind wanders off, you need to stop it in its tracks before it sprouts legs and then come back. Now, come day 2, you could just feel the energy. Everyone was on a low. We were doing this walking, looking like zombies. I was personally thinking, why are we doing this? Like, you don't need to do this. I know better. I've done this before and I know better. This is why it was tricky, because there was no technology. So it's not like you can listen to an audible book. It's not like you can read. It's not like you can keep your mind busy on something. You have to be in the moment all the time, because these pointless thoughts, and I mean pointless thoughts, just keep coming to your head constantly. Because if you think about it, how much stimulant is out there just from having conversations with people, being in a supermarket, all sounds, things moving about. Your brain is processing so much every single second. So you need to go through this process in order to clear the mind. The third day, things started getting a little better. People were less hungry. We started getting used to the cycle. The weather started to change. The sun started to come out every now and then. It was reflecting everyone's mood. So you could feel the energy rise in the camp. But that wasn't for everyone. Some people started to dwindle off and they actually started to leave. Because it's hard work, you are constantly concentrating. And one thing that kept coming to my mind is something that I say to all of you guys, all of my clients. Any change is going to be uncomfortable at first. Whether it's positive or negative, it's going to be uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. And then the pain started happening because you're sitting down for a big portion of the day, way more than you used to, straight back, no backrest, just sat there in meditation. So everyone's legs started to ache and people started to leave the camp because it was hard work. You're constantly concentrating. You're constantly having to keep these thoughts out your head and stop them sprouting legs. But day 4 come and things started to change for me massively. So people were still leaving because, like I said, it was hard work, but things started to change for me. I could start to feel energy again. Way more intense than usual, way more intense. I started getting way more visuals in meditation and also outside of meditation. I was having visuals with my eyes open, which I have had, but not as vivid as this, nowhere near as vivid as this. It was intense. Because when you raise your consciousness levels, your reality changes. Like I'm always saying, if you control the internal, you control the external. Everything starts to change. Your senses start to change. You unlock DNA within that's dormant. And this is why you start to see things that you didn't see before. You start to hear things that you didn't see before. This is why it's so important to raise your consciousness levels, because you literally can control your reality. At the end of the week, everyone's energy had changed. Everyone's energy. It was completely different. Everyone was happy. The food, we had loads of food left. No one was eating. You had a sauna every night as well. I forgot to mention that. You got an hour sauna every night and you could just feel the energy. Everyone was uplifted. Everyone was having epiphanies and breakthroughs. It was absolutely beautiful. And on our last night before we broke the silence the next day, we had an open circle where we were allowed to speak for a very short period of time and everyone was allowed to share their experiences. And it was so beautiful to see how far everyone has come. And it was just clarification for me that everything I've been doing is correct. And I knew it was. I just had a knowing. I just had a knowing that everything I was doing was right because of the past experiences I've had before this. And then this was just clarification, actually, because this is just what I've learned on my own, off my own back. And having clarification from a yogi, it was very uplifting, and it's made me want to get more serious with all of this, because I was pretty serious, but nowhere near as intense as what I could have been, if I'm being completely honest. So yeah, things are going to change for the better. The most challenging thing is when you're raising your consciousness levels, you don't have the same conversations that you used to have with people, because you're on a completely different wavelength, a different dimension, if you will. You're vibing differently, way differently. So it's hard to integrate into the real world. But as I've just witnessed this week, it's challenging to integrate into seclusion. And I used to think monks have it easy, if I'm honest, if I'm being completely honest. I used to think they're taking the easy route. They're not distracted by all of this. They're taking the easy way out. But in reality, you can only reach a certain level of consciousness with all of these distractions. So the levels that they must reach, if they're doing the teachings correctly, I can't even imagine, because I've not experienced it. But it's so beautiful, like so beautiful. And I'm just looking forward now to the next chapter. In conclusion, what I've learned from all of this is, one, I am definitely going to keep up with all the teachings, which I already do, like I said, but I've now got more tools to my toolbox. especially the walking meditation. That was cool. But you can do that with everything. You can do it when you're driving, changing gear. You can do it with anything. It's made me way more aware of how stimulated we all are. Like just being on your phone, think how much your brain's consuming. Just flick, 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 flick. Conversations you're having. Even going back into the service station on the way home, it was like bam, 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 bam. TV's going off, tannoy's going off, people talking, flashing lights. It was a lot, and I was focusing on my breath. Left, right. Just staying as present as you possibly can. You need to be aware of being aware. You need to see yourself as out of body in as many scenarios as you can. And when you feel your mind drifting off, you need to come back. So yeah, I've got more tools in my toolbox now to be aware more, to keep on the path that I'm going down. I know I need to stay off this phone a lot more than what I am doing. I know I need it for work, but I need to prioritize me. And it's, like I said, it's giving me that clarification, because when you're on this path, it can be lonely. It can be very lonely. And sometimes you may have one of them crazy thoughts where you think you're going crazy, because you do start to visualize things, you do start to hear things, and you think you're going a little bit crazy. And having that clarification at the end as well, speaking to everyone who's on a similar journey, it was just absolutely beautiful. It was beautiful. And I really couldn't recommend it enough. I really couldn't. It's not for the faint-hearted. It isn't. This journey for me, it started a few years ago, and it literally changed my life. I had an experience that, yeah, it just changed my life. I don't need to go into detail. It changed my life. It changed the way I even train dogs. So this is why I'm constantly, and I will forever be constantly helping you guys raise your consciousness levels, because we're all in this ride together, and we need to help each other. We are all one. We are all one. Have a beautiful day.